my channel, The Fancy Hat Lady Reads. I'm wearing one of my fancy booktube hats, and today I'm bringing you my September book haul. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 books I got in the month of September. All but one of them were used, and the majority of those used books were $1 or less. So these were definitely almost all on like the impulse. If it's this cheap, I'll pick it up, and who knows when I'll read it, but at least I have it side of things. But I'm going to start off with the used books that were more than $1. I have 4 of them, and 3 of them I have very little guilt about because they are very small children's books and they will take up very little space and take very little time to read. So the first 2 are a couple of the Moomin books. These are Comet in Moominland and Finn Family Moomintroll, both by Tove Jannson. I have recently, through BookTube, become aware that Moomins are a thing that my childhood was sorely lacking. And I would like to make up for that lack. Literally a few days before I found these books, I saw a woman on the subway wearing a Moomin print dress, and I was like, oh, I should really read these Moomin books, shouldn't I? These are book 2 and 3 in the series. I don't know whether these are books that should be read in series order or if they each stand alone. If you know whether or not I can start with these, please let me know. I want to know. And then the third kids book that I picked up used was Hamster Princess Book 1, Harriet the Invincible by Ursula Vernon. This is the first in her Hamster Princess series. I have been reading the Dragon Breath series under the pretense of the fact that I want to read them and then give them to my cousin. I'm not gonna lie to myself though, this one I am buying and reading just for me. The Hamster Princess books are all twists on fairy tales featuring Princess Harriet Hamsterbone. In this first book, Harriet learns that she had a Sleeping Beauty curse put on her when she was a little baby hamster. This curse is meant to go into effect on her 12th birthday, but Harriet figures that she is invincible until then because the curse won't let anything else happen to her first. And so she goes on all sorts of rollicking adventures as Harriet the Invincible. I think this is going to be fun. The next used book that I got for, gasp, more than $1 was The Habitation of the Blessed by Catherynne and Valente. This is the first book of A Dirge for Prester John. Now, these books are low on my priority of backlist of hers to read because this trilogy was never actually completed. The first 2 books were published. I think the 3rd book was written, and then there was a split between the author and the publisher, and then that 3rd book was never published. I know she has talked about maybe wanting to self-publish the 3rd book someday, and I don't know whether I'm going to want to wait for news of that happening or not to actually read the first book in the series, but I had not realized that these are apparently out of print, and I don't want to lose the opportunity to get my hands on an easily available copy of this because the book is out of print and potentially hard to find going forward. I actually have very little idea of what this series is about, but they have lovely covers and I trust this author. Next I have my 2 50-cent books. The first is Volume 1 of the Chronicles of Chrestomanci by Diana Wynne Jones. What is in this book is Charmed Life and The Lives of Christopher Chant. I don't know if this is the only reading order for this series. I think this might be a series where there are multiple possible reading orders. But if these are the ones that are in Volume 1 of a bind-up edition, then I figured this is a fine volume of 2 books to have. This series is another bandwagon that I missed out on as a kid. Again, these aren't high priority reading for me right now, but I had a chance to pick up a 2-book bind-up for 50 cents, so I grabbed it. And then the second 50-cent book that I have is Crocodile on the Sandbank by Elizabeth Peters. This is the first book in the very popular Amelia Peabody mystery series that I know I eventually want to read someday. I'm like way behind on the mysteries that I theoretically would like to be reading, just because I haven't been reading a lot of mysteries lately. I know my mom has a copy of this, so I could borrow it from her, but it is easier just to have my own copy since it's a small mass market paperback. Next, I have 4 $1 books, the first one of which is Updraft by Fran Wilde. This is the first book in her Bone Universe trilogy, the third book of which I think either just came out or is going to come out, so I figured this is a fine time to pick up book 1. This is a copy with a damaged cover here, but I really don't care. This is supposed to be kind of YA-ish. I think it takes place in a world where, like, people use these wings to fly between various tall spires, and it won the Andre Norton Award. My next $1 book is this one. This is one of the old Fantasy Masterworks editions. This is Lyonesse Book 1, Suldrun's Garden by Jack Vance. I have never read Jack Vance before, and honestly I don't know a ton about him, but he's a highly acclaimed author, and this is apparently a fantasy masterwork, and it is a beautiful color of purple, so why not for $1? I think it was originally published in 1983. The next book I have here is Kalpa Imperial by, oh my goodness, Angélica Gorodischer? I really should have looked that up before I filmed this because I know people who have reviewed this book on BookTube who probably know how to pronounce it. But I believe she's an Argentine writer, and this is the first of her books to be translated into English. This is translated by Ursula K. Le Guin, and I believe it's sort of a collection of connected short stories that tell the story of a fictional empire. I'm just going to say I'm deeply intrigued by the fact that one of the chapters and or stories in this appears to be titled The End of a Dynasty or The Natural History of Ferrets. And the last of the $1 books that I have, and also the last of the used books, is The White Road of the Moon by Rachel Neumeier. This is a young adult book that is a pretty new release. I think this is a 2017 release. I think this is a fantasy standalone about a girl who can see ghosts. What I remember was being sort of hyped about this when it was released was that it has a ghost dog in it that you're gonna want to read about. Anyhow, this is now the second of this author's YA books that I've picked up recently. I'd really like to read one or the other of them sometime soon. I really don't know which, though, or when. And then the only new book that I have from this month is, ta-da, this one, Jackalope Wives and Other Stories by T. Kingfisher. This is her most recent collection of short stories that was recently self-published as an ebook, and now this print edition is out that matches this one. So her T. Kingfisher books are slowly and gradually, it seems, being released in these print editions. I'm very happy about that since I'm much more inclined to read print than ebooks. It means I'll probably get to them all much sooner. Anyhow, I really loved the title story of this collection, Jackalope Wives. I started reading The Tomato Thief, which is the sequel to that one, which is also in here, that won the Hugo Award for Best Novelette recently. And I never got through it because it's a little long for reading on a computer screen for me. So I'm really looking forward to reading this and being able to get through to the end of The Tomato Thief. And also, I believe this has a couple of new stories in it as well. I'm just going to read you the list of what all is in this. So, table of contents. The Kingfisher and the Jackalope, Godmother, Jackalope Wives, Wooden Feathers, Editing, Bird Bones, That Time with Bob and the Unicorn. The title of that one has me very intrigued. Razorback, The Dryad's Shoe, Let Pass the Horses Black, This Vote is Legally Binding, Telling the Bees, The Tomato Thief, In Questionable Taste, Origin Story, Poccasin, It Was a Day. So that's what's in this one, and I think the two that are new are Origin Story and Let Pass the Horses Black. So that's my September book haul, full of mostly really cheap things that aren't necessarily super high priority for me, but some of these I'm very excited about. Anyhow, let me know if you got any books you're particularly excited about in the month of September. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know what you think of them. Anyhow, I hope you're having a nice day. That is all. Bye for now.